And just a reminder, as we start moving forward, we typically consider assistive technology using the SET framework. And that's looking at the student, the environments, the tasks, and then overlaying the tools. And I know that Elizabeth's going to be showing us a lot of tools today, so keep in mind those features of your student, the environments that they'll be existing in, the tasks that the team is hoping to have them do. And then remember that that's a great tool for equity, making sure that every student gets exactly what it is that they need. And now I'm going to stop screen sharing and turn it over to Elizabeth Berry, who is here from the Simon Technology Center at Pacer. And we have had so many requests to hear about assistive technology for early childhood. And so, Elizabeth, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself and get started.
Yes, as Julie said, my name is Elizabeth Berry, and I'm an assistive technology specialist here at Pacer. And I was just thinking about this. I've been at Pacer for a little over 8 years. And my background is actually in early childhood special education. And so for the first 5 years of my time here at Pacer, I worked on a project that was specifically focused on working with a few, a few districts here in the cities around assistive technology and early childhood. I'm currently now our AAC specialist for all ages, not just early childhood, but early childhood is definitely my passion, and I'm so excited to get to show you some fun stuff today. And please feel free to ask as many questions as you have and interrupt me and everything like that. Doesn't matter to me, and I want you to get the most out of this that we can. So thank you for having me. All right, so, and I am a newbie to Google Meet, so I'm going to attempt this. But I'm going to first start with, Julie and I were chatting. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our London Library and how that works, but our membership options have just changed, and as Julie called it, it's an exciting change. So I'm going to attempt here to just share my window here and show you our website and get there. So this is one of the links that Julie shared with you. This is where you can find out about our different membership options. And the exciting thing is that we now have some free options for both families and you as professionals. And so these kind of the details are here. If you have a free membership, we do require a credit card on file just so we can have kind of a little liability piece that we get our stuff back so other people can try. But with those free memberships, you can try 4 items and 4 apps at a time. And then the free professional membership, you also get those free 4 items and 4 apps at a time. But in that membership, only you as the account holder can borrow items. So you can't add on a colleague or a group of people. And then you yourself are the responsible party. And if that is something that you don't want to do, or you want to have more people on the membership, or you want to borrow more items, we do have a paid organizational membership that is $200 a year, and you can borrow 8 items and 8 apps, and then use the organization as the liable party. So that's kind of a quick overview. I'm happy to answer any questions about those. And then before I kind of dive into the fun part, one of the other links that Julie shared with you is just our inventory. And so everything that I'm showing you today is part of our inventory. But through that link, you can search, you can go through categories. One thing I would caution, we do have an early childhood category, but not all assistive technology can be confined to early childhood. So things that are appropriate for early childhood might also be in a different category and things like that, as we'll kind of see as I demo things. But so that can be a way to look through it, but just know that you might want to go to some of the other categories to find useful things as well. There. Any questions about that before we kind of jump to the fun part?
Anyone can feel free to unmute themselves and talk, or type something in the chat window and I can read it out as well.
Oh, and one thing I did not mention is, which is important for this group, is we do mail items. So we, Pacer will pay to mail the items to you, and then you pay to mail the items back to us. We do have obviously in-person options, but for you, it would most likely be that mailing piece. All right. So now let's see if I might need to get out of window. All right. So now are we seeing a doc cam, hopefully? And my friend, oh, he's kind of close up here.
Yes,
This is
great.
okay. He might, well, I might actually, can you still see me though? So if I hold this up, you can see my friend?
Yep.
So then I'll put the switch here under the doc cam. That might work better.
Great.
So as we mentioned, we have lots of switch adapted toys, which are a great way to make play more accessible to kids. But in addition to the switch adapted toys is we have lots of variety of switches. So I pulled, I think, 4 different ones here today, just to kind of show you kind of the different things that you can think about, which might depend on the access needs of your student. So this switch here that's under the doc cam is called a Pal Pad, and this one you can see is just really skinny and flat. So I don't have to do much to get up to it. Whereas if I put my other one here, it's an adjustable angle switch where it's more at an angle. So I have to get up to it, where this one I can just slide to it. And if I touch this one, my toy moves. And if I touch it again, he stops. Oh, he should stop. There we go. And one thing that we do note in each of our toys in the database is that each toy can react a little differently with a switch. So this one, I touched the switch and he started, and I touched it again and he stopped. We have some toys where I touch it once and he will go and play for a certain amount of time that's determined by the toy. Even if I touch it again, it won't do anything. We have some where, I can touch and hold. I have to touch and hold for him to keep going, whereas this one I just touched it once and he started. So there's lots of different options depending on kind of what you're interested in and different skills and things like that. So I'm going to kind of look at, so this switch is nice because if I turn these little knobs here, let's see, you can change kind of the angle that the switch is at, so that if this is a great angle for me, I can do that, but also I can kind of anywhere where I can put this down, this yellow piece down and tighten it, I can change that angle, which can be helpful as you're trying to kind of find a good switch site and things like that. And then I'm gonna grab a different toy here, who actually I'll put under the doc cam because this one likes to walk across the table. But we also have the kind of, I think, if you know about switches, people tend to know about kind of the jelly bean circle switches. This one is I just push the switch, similar to the other one. But I wanted to show you this one. This is called the honeybee proximity switch. If I turn it on here, there we go. And then plug them in. What's different about this one is this one I can set so I could just have to get close to the switch, so that if I might have difficulty kind of getting to a switch, or I'm just learning kind of switch access, I can set this one to touch, be 1 inch, 3 inches, or 6 inches. So let me just see what it's set to here. We'll do 3 because then it's easier to see. So now if I just get that close, let's see if I can. So my switch, the cat has started even though I am not touching my switch, but as soon as I pull away, it stops. And so just know that there are lots of different switches, so that if you start with kind of what might be seen as kind of a, whoops, because I'm now activating him a lot, kind of a standard what people think about with switches, and it's not working, there are lots of other options too.
Elizabeth, a question came in on the chat window. Missy Stevenson asked, how can we make this connect with our regular classroom toys?
That is a great question. So unfortunately, switch adapted toys, you can switch adapt your own toys. And you do need to they need to kind of be basic, not have a lot of electrical things. Um, but to make them switch adapted, there are kind of also little, I believe we have some in the library, and I'm not going to come up with the right name of them right now. They're little battery interrupter adapters where you can open this up and the little copper disc goes by the battery, and then there's a switch port out of it. So you could make it switch adapted kind of not on a permanent basis, or you can borrow some toys from us too, would be ways to do that. All right. And so kind of keeping on the play a little bit, because I'm a big fan of play, I did grab a lot of different ways that you can either make toys more accessible, or there's been a great movement, I think, from toy makers in the last 10 years or so, where they're building more universal design into their toys that they're making. So I'm going to show you a few of those. But the first one I want to show you are these things called Easy Holds. And they come in all different sizes. And so basically, the different sizes have different size holes, and you can put them around anything that fits through the holes. So I put this one around a play baby bottle, and so now I can hold on to this baby bottle just by putting my hand through the Easy Hold. I don't have to be able to grip the bottle and move it that way. You can also put them around art things. So this one's around a marker, and this way I can just put a couple fingers or even a finger through there and use the marker that way. So basically anything that can fit through these holes, you can use them with. And they come in all different sizes and lengths. So that can be another great way to use with toys that you already have, materials that you already have, but make them a little bit more accessible.
I see a hand.
I'm just gonna. This is Missy again. Same.
Yeah.
We are actually using those things that you just put on with a student right now, and they've been fantastic.
Yeah, I love it because they're so simple, but they make a lot of things more accessible and easier to use.
Yeah, it's nice for in the moment right there. Like she can join in with what everybody else is doing, which is kind of my thing.
Yes. And I didn't grab it. We do have one that's got a really big hole on the end. It's intended to be like an actual drink bottle holder, but you could also use it for bigger things too. If you're looking at these and thinking, well, those are kind of small holes. So there are some bigger options too. And then how am I doing? I just want to make sure. Okay. In terms of kind of the toys that we have that are kind of, they were thoughtful with the design of them that we have. So we have different toys. So the first ones are Pip Squigs. I don't know if you're familiar with those, or the Squigs are the smaller size. But there are lots of toys now that are coming with some suction cups on the end. So I can suction these to the table and I can play with them. These ones make some noise, have some different textures, and play with them. Like we also have a bead maze. I don't know if you know those kind of mazes where you can move things around the tracks that has some suction cups on the end. So just a different way to think about how can I make this a little bit more stable for my student. So, and then in terms of how can I make things a little bit more easier to grab, we have items like this one. This one is a oval rattle where I can hold on to just one end of it, but I can still play with it, and I'm not going to drop it. It's not something that I have to have kind of this grip of ability. I can kind of do whatever. I can get my finger stuck in there and play with it. I've even put a bungee cord through here and then put it on like a wheelchair tray, because then you don't have to even hold on to it at all. You can just kind of put it back and forth. So yeah, so if you were to go in to search to our, I believe these might be in toys. Some of them are probably in early childhood, might be in toys. We do have kind of some that are just commercially available toys that have kind of some good thought behind them. I have one more here, which this one might be better hold up. Has a real stable base, but then I can push things through, make noise, feel the different textures, turn them, and nothing's going to roll away from me or fall off the table and things like that. All right. So I know from your questions there was some communication thoughts and questions. So I did grab some communication tools. We have in our library, we have a variety of both kind of mid-tech options, things with batteries that you then record, as well as also a pretty good selection of the dedicated high-tech devices, as well as the apps that we can either push out to your iPad, or we also have iPads that we can load the apps on and you can borrow as well. But I just grabbed a few of our kind of mid-tech devices. So this one is the Super Talker. If I turn it on here, let's see if I can, there we go. So this is one where you make the pictures and you record the voices, but now when I push a button, I don't know if you can hear that. It said that I recorded it. And what's nice about the Super Talker is that this one, whoops, you can kind of see it has an 8 grid set on here now, but I'm going to turn it off for a second so it doesn't keep speaking. But if I flip it over, it comes with the different sizes. So you can start with one. Let me grab a picture here behind it so it's easier to see. So I could start with one word and kind of, scaffold up those skills, and then to 2 and 4, all the way up to that 8 size. 8 is as high as it goes, so it's not necessarily probably a long-term solution, but it can be a great way to introduce kind of how a communication tool works, and that I push a button and it says something and that means something to someone. And the other thing that's nice about this one, what the FT means is feather touch. So probably couldn't tell that, but I barely touched the U button. I got just kind of close to it. And it activated. So it doesn't require a ton of pressure to activate, which is nice. And it can be a great kind of starting point. But as now I said that, I don't want to be clear, you don't necessarily have to start with mid-tech. You could start with the high-tech. It's just what's best for the student. But then the other mid-tech example that I grabbed here is a GoTalk. And GoTalks come in all different sizes. So they could have 4 buttons, 9, 20, like this one has, up to 32. And then this one is also, what the fingerprint means is this one is also a light touch device. And GoTalks do come in non-light touch, although there's not a ton of difference between them. But what this one works similar to the Super Talker. I kind of make my picture overlay, and then I record it. And let's see, I can record up to 5 different kind of overlay pictures that I put in here. And then, but then across those 5 overlays, these ones at the top will stay the same. So we've just made a board with core, there's a glare there, core vocabulary just for demonstration purposes. But like if you needed a button for yes or no, if the child didn't have a different way to say that, things that you might be helpful to always have access to could go on this top row. But then it works similar to the Super Talker. I push a button and it says what I recorded on that button. Are there any questions about those 2 devices or communication in general? No? Okay.
Not seeing anything in the chat windows.
All right. So I will keep going, but always feel free to jump in here because I know we only have about 10 minutes left. So I want to make sure that I kind of show you as much as I can to kind of whet your appetite here. We also have in the library a lot of things for thinking about kind of early literacy, early math skills, and how to make those, I mean, more accessible, obviously, but also thinking about how the different learning styles and how some kids, if you present the same skill in a different way, they get it rather than where they have been struggling before. So what this big tub here is are some letter builders, and we have these in kind of different forms. These ones are translucent, so they could be used on a light table if you have someone with low vision or just needs that to help pay attention. But I have the big curves and the little curves, and the big lines and the little lines, but then they snap together if I put them the right way here to make my letters. So that if I'm more of a kinesthetic learner and building things is something that I'm good at and I enjoy, sometimes we find that presenting the skill this way can be helpful. And these are just they come in a big set like this. So you get a whole bunch trying to kind of build together. But we have a lot of different things kind of approaching maybe typical skills in a different way. And then I also grabbed one thing that we also have a fair number in the library is that kind of holding a writing utensil can be difficult to and developing a grasp can be difficult. So we have a fair number of pencil grips in the library, sometimes more appropriate for older kids, but we do have, I don't know if anyone's familiar with these, they're called twist and write pencils. And they look a little bit like a wishbone. So if I put my finger through the wishbone, it kind of guides me into that tripod grip. And so then I can write this way. And the paper that I have here is called Bright Lines paper, where it's highlighted on the bottom so that can be a visual that I know that if I make lowercase b, my curve should stay on the bottom. That's an idea. But I mean, this is commercial paper, but you could also just take a yellow highlighter and do the same thing. But so there are different ways that you can approach kind of developing writing skills. And then we also, a big kind of popular area of our library is our sensory section. So we do have a bunch of different fidgets to start with. So I grabbed a few. So this one is just a ball that has different balls in it that I can squeeze and things like that. This one here is called the Bendies and might be my personal favorite fidget because I can twist and turn this and pull it and modify it without making any noise. And it's very hard to break. I mean, I'm not going to guarantee that it won't break, but it's pretty thick rubber, but I can still manipulate it and bend it. And then grab this. This one I might have to. We have both this is kind of a Lycra stretch that I can either use my arms and kind of use this stretch this way to get some sensory input that way. I'm too tall for it because this is obviously made for a shorter individual. I could put my, stand in it, put it under my feet and pull it up that way. So we have different items where you can kind of work some of that proprioceptive input that way. And then if I can grab them here. We also have a fair amount of different weighted items for that calming influence. So this is Cordy Elephant. He came with that name, but he's weighted, I believe he weighs, I want to say 2 to 3 pounds. but we have different weights, weighted items, and they weigh different weights. And it should say, if you were wanting to borrow something, how much something weighs in the item description. If it doesn't, you could always email us and we would get that information for you. But this one is nice. He could sit on my lap. You know, I could hold him. I could, you know, hug him and things like that. So another great option to get some weighted input. Other than, you know, I think the vests are popular and things like that, but there are other options. All right, so looks like we have a few minutes left. I have a few more things, but I'm also happy to answer any questions, or you're thinking about, you know, do you have anything for A, B, or C that to be? I'm happy to answer any questions there.
As always, feel free to type anything in the chat window, unmute yourselves, whatever you're most comfortable with.
Maybe this is more a question for Julie, but does Duluth have a membership to this lending library, or do we plan to get one?
We have one. Yes, we do. So anything that you saw that you were interested in borrowing, you could just reach out to me and I could make that request. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I got two things then. Julie, I'm reaching out to you right now. I want that copper disc thing, the battery adapter for toys.
We've actually got some in our ISD 709 library that I can probably send you.
Absolutely, shoot them my way. That's thing one. Thing two, Elizabeth, I used to work at Pacer Center as an intern before I became a special ed teacher, so like 25 years ago.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason why I became what I became. So I am very grateful for Pacer and what you all do, and I think it's great.
Yeah. And one thing that I didn't mention too, that you obviously have Julie as a resource too, but if you ever have any questions about, you know, a tool for a child who needs to be able to do A, or this is what they can do you have anything, you can reach out. You know, part of our job is to do the research for you because we know you're just a little busy. So if that is something that you would be helpful, feel free to reach out to.
And they are amazing about this. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, they're quick and they have great ideas and access to some really great resources. So they've been an amazing resource.
If we don't know the answer right away, we will do the research for you and get back to you. So, and I did see a question about, can you do an individual professional membership? You can do an individual professional membership if you would like. Just keep in mind that would mean you would have to put a credit card on file and you would be the liable party for that. But if you would rather do that, you're welcome to do that as well.
And if you go through our district one, we'll pay the shipping cost to get it back too. So. All right, well, I think I'll go ahead and stop recording, but keep the questions coming if you've got any of those. We'll hang around for a little while longer here.